In a land torn by kingdoms and fate, one man rose from the shadow of his father to become a legend. Born a count, crowned a king, and feared across the Iberian peninsula, he was Fernando I, the Great. Warrior of Christendom, uniter of Castile and Leon, and the scourge of the southern Typhus, but glory comes at a price. As his sword carved victory, his final act would fracture the realm and ignite a struggle that would echo for generations. The king is dead. Long live the kings. A man's legacy is his children. If those words are to be believed, then Fernando's legacy seemed secure, as all three of his sons were capable, each in their own right. Sancho the Strong, a man of iron will and sharper steel, the eldest son raised in the shadow of greatness and forceful war. Born to conquer, not to share. The Strong. What better man to embody the word? Alfonso the Brave. Patient, precise, and dangerously perceptive. He speaks little, watches everything, and plays the game no one else sees. While others swing swords, he sharpens minds, his own and those around him. A politically shrewd man. Garcia. Trusting, thoughtful, and known for his pious nature. Though often overshadowed by his older brothers, Garcia grew up to be a man every father would be proud of. But the world he was born into rewarded none of his virtues. And monsters often wore the faces of men who once shared his cradle. 3 sons, 3 natures, a strong legacy to unite Spain. The problem was, he decided to give each a crown. The year is 1066 AD, and Spain is fractured. After the death of Fernando, his lands were split between his sons. Garcia, the youngest, seemed to have drawn the short end of the stick. His inheritance was the most turbulent of the 3, Galicia. Perhaps recognizing his lack of martial prowess when compared to his brothers, he moved swiftly to stabilize his rule, strengthening his legitimacy through the church and cultivating the support of the local nobility. Alfonso, ever his father's favorite, received the wealthiest and most stable of the 3 realms. Leon. Rich in resources and fortified by tradition, Leon offered not just prosperity but political leverage. With its experienced lords and deep institutional roots, it was a kingdom fit for a strategist, and Alfonso was exactly that. The arrangements made by their father were completely unacceptable for the eldest, Sancho. Feeling cheated out of his full inheritance, he began preparations for war in his Castilian lands, determined to reclaim what he believed was his, even if that meant turning against his own flesh and blood. Each one of these men were worthy of their own song, but the Iberian struggle was the birthplace of many legends. Born into the minor nobility, Rodrigo was raised at the court of Fernando the Great, and later served his eldest son. Their shared experiences at court likely fostered a close bond, leading to a swift friendship. Upon Sancho's ascension in 1065, Rodrigo rose swiftly through the ranks, becoming Castile's commander and royal standard-bearer. Feeling the approaching conflict with his brothers, Sancho gave a simple instruction to his servant. Rodrigo was to go forth on his own, to gather an army and further his master's interests. Welcome to those who made it past the long intro. I thought it would be a good idea to introduce you to the characters we will be dealing with, so you can understand the political situation of the region. I wanted to talk about a few things before we begin, so there is no confusion. Mainly about the mods I'm using and a couple of rules I set for myself. So the first mod is a game changer. The concept is quite simple. It combines the two games of Crusader Kings 3 and Attila Total War, but to me personally it's a must-have. You play the campaign on Crusader Kings 3, you fight your battles in Attila Total War, the two are connected, the results carry over. It's quite seamless. All you do is press a button, you fight your battle, your results get exported into Crusader Kings, and you move on. The only downside is that you need to own the two games and some DLCs, so if you're on a tight budget, then it might not be the best option for you. One thing I always disliked about Crusader Kings 3 was how vassals were super passive. Like, these guys will do nothing, absolutely nothing. You can declare, let's say you declare a war on their king for the claim to take their duchy. You will fight the king, but the duke with 10,000 troops will just sit there and let you take his land. Like, it makes zero sense. What interactive vassals does is it fixes all this. It gives the vassals a lot more options, both for the AI and for the player, to join different wars of their liege lord, be it a king, a duke, it doesn't matter. So let's say in that same scenario, if I declare the war with a claim for that duchy, now the AI will immediately recognize, oh wait, if I let this dude win the war, he will take all my land. So immediately the vassal will join his king to defend against you. Meanwhile, all other vassals, they will have their separate decisions. It's really great. If you're familiar with a Game of Thrones mod, it's the same thing there. If you know about mega wars in a Game of Thrones, it works the same way. Now for the rules, both rules involve Attila mainly. Rule number 1, no cheesy tactics. Other Total War players, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The AI in Total War games is notoriously bad. Everything there it's easy to cheese, even if you're outnumbered 5-1. So let me give you an example of what I would consider a cheese tactic. That would be hugging the corners of the map, so I prevent the AI from flanking me. That's a good example, something like that. I will try to keep the battles always in the middle of the map, so the AI will have its chance to utilize its troops. In the case they outnumber us, it will most likely win, actually. But we'll see what happens. Rule number 2. When can I control the battle myself? I can only control the battle if my own character is leading the army. This is actually a rule I follow for my own playthroughs when I play for fun. And it works, it just works. It's a good way to hinder the player, so you're not winning every single fight, you know. Let me give you an example. Let's say Garcia is wounded, he's in no condition to lead his men. What do we do then? Well, I will still initiate the battle in Attila Total War, however, this time I will hand over control of my troops over to the AI. This way we will be watching a battle AI versus AI, which in this case might be for the better, because let me tell you, Crusader Wars does not allow you to save battle replays, for better or worse. I suspect it has to do with the large variations of mods and troops it uses, but that I'm sure that does not concern you that much. I will still try to make the battles presentable to the best of my abilities. Narrate. You know, this is a tough one because I have to say I have been recording myself talking. This is the second time in my life for this video, so it is what it is. And now for Galicia. So here we are playing as Garcia, the youngest of the three brothers. Now let's take a look at him to see what kind of a character he is. So he's content, trusting, wrathful, zealous. And he's decent at stewardship, it appears. So let's go ahead and pin our brothers just to keep watch on them. Now this playthrough, playing with Galicia, I think it's hard enough in the vanilla game, but with interactive vassals it's even harder. So let me show you what we are dealing with. Now look at this. So when we compare Garcia to the other kings, his main problem is that he starts owning very few of his territories. So most of Galicia is in the direct control of vassals. But if we look at Alfonso and Sancho, now look at this. Sancho controls almost all of his land. So does Alfonso. And that directly affects the armies we get. So you see we have 978 men. Alfonso has 1700 and Sancho has 2200. But that's not where our issues end. Now I want you to look at this and I will explain what will happen should someone declare war on us. Now, we have to deal with 3 counts and 1 duke. Let's look at the counts. So the first count is Count Diego from House Menendez. That's pretty good sigil. He dislikes us, but I think he can be persuaded to be more helpful to us. The other Count Diego from House Veni Gomez, I think I'm pronouncing it right. He dislikes us too, but I think we can change his mind. Count Vasco, now this guy really hates our guts. Or look at this, he's belligerent. But the biggest problem of all, Duke Nuno Vimaranes is the name of his house. I think I'm pronouncing it right. When you play with a mod like Interactive Vassals, as I mentioned a bit earlier in the video, now all of these guys can either join any war I start or any war started against me. So either aggressive wars or defensive wars. If the war is defensive, the vassals have a much higher chance to join you in defense of the realm. However, in our case, where everyone except Diego, where pretty much everyone hates our guts. Now let's say one of my brothers, be it Sancho or Alfonso, if they declare war on us, not only will this guy not join the war, it's highly likely that he will join my brother against me. Even though it looks like we are controlling all this land, we are really not. Like, we are in big trouble. The only good thing about this start, which it affects all brothers. None of them are married. No wives, no children. That's the same for all. Now I'm going to tell you exactly what will happen if we don't secure a strong alliance. It won't even be a year. Alfonso will declare war on us, and he will win. We can't beat him. On our own, we can't beat him. This guy, I'm almost certain he will join the war against us, our own vassal. These two have a very high chance to join the war against us. And this guy will probably stay neutral. What we need to start doing is to cultivate the support of our lords. Funny enough, that's what historical figure of Garcia did. Now, a little about Garcia. He's a very interesting figure. Those who are familiar with the history of this region probably know that when you read about this conflict, most likely you will hear a lot about Alfonso, you will hear a lot about Sancho, but Garcia, he's always a little overshadowed by his brothers. There is a reason for this. Depending on what sources you read, Garcia is depicted in generally two ways. First, he's depicted as a very naive man. The second is that he's depicted as this competent ruler who was put in a very bad situation. Let's put it this way. So let's get over kind of roughly what happened in history with the three of them, and we'll add another character. So in the beginning, after the death of Fernando, Alfonso and Sancho have this understanding, both agree to it, that they would meet and have this big fight or something. And whoever wins, he will get both, he will be king of both Castile and Leon. Now Sancho wins this encounter, and guess what? After he loses, Alfonso says that he doesn't want to forfeit his kingdom, so this whole charade was for nothing. Now you might think that Sancho would be extremely salty about this, but it's not true. All accounts show that the two brothers remained very cordial with each other, to the point where Sancho even invited Alfonso to his wedding. Now, somewhere around this time, the wedding, the two of them started plotting against their younger brother. They were looking at Galicia and thinking to themselves that they might conquer it and split it between them, which wouldn't have worked for Sancho because he had the entire kingdom of Leon standing between him and Galicia. Nonetheless, they still attacked their little brother and took his lands. Garcia was exiled at this point. Eventually, Sancho and Alfonso face each other again. Sancho wins and drives Alfonso back. Alfonso is sent into exile, and so Sancho becomes the victor by sword. He reunifies the original kingdom of his father. However, this does not last. I don't remember how long exactly, but right after he takes the crown of his father's kingdom, Sancho is immediately assassinated. I know what you might be thinking. This guy, he's the guilty one. Just look at his traits: calm, deceitful, cynical, lustful, the elusive shadow. You know, even the developers think that he did it. But historical sources I think, at least from what I saw, show that even though it seemed like a very big coincidence that, oh, Alfonso kills his brother and then he becomes king. Because, you know, when Sancho died, he didn't have any children. So, naturally, Alfonso was the only heir. So, Alfonso comes out of exile, becomes king, and everyone is looking at him like, yeah, we know. Even this is what I was going to mention. Captain Rodrigo, some of you may know him as El Cid. One of the things that happens after Alfonso becomes king is that Rodrigo goes and makes him swear that he didn't have anything to do with Sancho's murder, which, you know, didn't sit very well with Alfonso, because that's pretty much saying, look, I think you killed my former master, and the two didn't get along, so to speak. I'll get into that a bit later. So after Sancho's death, Alfonso inherits the crown. However, during all this, while after Sancho dies and all the chaos, Garcia uses this moment to return, perhaps feeling safe, or he had a desire to reclaim his kingdom. And what does Alfonso do? Alfonso sends an invitation to his younger brother under the pretext that the two will reconcile, and Garcia accepts. However, when Garcia arrives at the meeting, Alfonso has him arrested, so Garcia is taken into custody, and he's kept in custody for the rest of his life in a castle. I think it was a castle, you know. On one place I saw that it was a castle where he was kept, on another place I read that it was actually a monastery, and on a third place I read that it wasn't quite clear where he was kept. But one interesting thing about Garcia I read was that when he died, he wanted to, I think he was depicted with chains. This was his wish. On his tomb to be depicted with chains, because he wanted to show that, you know, he was taken by the deception, which it was, you know, it was his older brother. So now that you know what happened, roughly, you can understand why some sources depict Garcia as very naive. You know, if he asked anyone today what to do, they would instantly tell him, don't go, don't go. But on the other hand, I think this is not true. I don't think he was naive. I think he was motivated by personal feelings. You know, they were brothers. Just because it was medieval time doesn't mean they were barbarians. They probably loved each other, you know. They grew up together, I would assume. My personal interpretation of Garcia, from what I saw, was that I thought he was very competent, you know, in the way that he approached pacifying Galicia. He took two routes. One of the routes was how I mentioned, that he tried to win over his lords. The other part was through the church, which I think we need to do ourselves, because this guy hates us. So in the case of Garcia, I would say that it's highly likely that he was very competent. He was well educated. I think he spoke Latin, but he just was put in a very bad spot. So another character I briefly mentioned in the intro, let's see if we can find him. Here he is, Captain Rodrigo. another very interesting figure in history. I didn't know anything about him. What I saw was that he was born in Burgos. As I mentioned in the intro, in the beginning he worked very closely under King Sancho. But after Sancho dies and Alfonso inherits the crown, Rodrigo is put in a tough position because he starts to get very alienated from court. Eventually, Alfonso exiles Rodrigo, which is another change in Crusader Kings, which surprised me. Initially, I tried to play as Rodrigo. However, I just found his start a little too easy, to tell you the truth, because you're always allied with the winners. On top of that, Rodrigo, from history, he's often called El Cid, which is a title he earns later in his life, after his exile from Alfonso. So you see he's very OP, like 29 Marshal, he has all these perks that have to do with him leading an army, so he's not a difficult character to play. I recorded for like 2 hours in total, but I found it very boring. I was almost doing nothing. And any war I was getting involved in, we were always fighting the weaker foes. So naturally, I gravitated towards playing with Garcia. He is the underdog here, like everyone hates him. Not only do his own vassals dislike him, but his brothers dislike him also, and both of them would declare war on him. I'm almost certain that if I don't find a good marriage before I unpause the game, the moment I unpause it, give it a month or two, and they will declare war on me. So this is what we need to do first. This is the most important. We need to figure out who we are going to marry. Now we have a couple of options. Potential Normandy. They're a good option, but a little far. William the Conqueror. I think, yes. So let's see what our other Bohemia, too far away. By the time he gets here, we'll be smoked pretty much. Ah, see, this is a good option. With Bohemia's source being too far away and Zahida from Tula upholding a different fate, Garcia's choice was made for him. He was to ally himself with William the Bastard from Normandy and use his reputation to stay the swords of his brothers Alfonso and Sancho. The arrogant and gluttonous little girl Cecilia was surely destined to grow into a woman who was an absolute joy to live with. With his newly acquired shield and time on his hands, the young king finally managed to take a breath and focus on his internal affairs. But even more good news followed. Word came that Sancho had exiled his trusted knight and friend Rodrigo. Not even a day after the loyal knight set foot in his camp outside of Burgas, Count Inicu, Castillo's spymaster, delivered the king's words. Exile. The message was clear. Unable to accept that his friend and master would condemn him to such a fate, Rodrigo demanded to speak to King Sancho himself, fearing that the serpents at court were poisoning his mind. Alas, his request was not granted. I don't think we had much of a choice. Stewardship is actually a good option for this. Personally, I would have preferred the diplomacy, because we really need to get our lords in check. Let's focus on the domain. Because I'm going to act as if we have won ourselves enough time, and we need to act quickly on this. This guy has to go. I don't think we can convince him of anything. What I want to do is take his land. I need to put myself in the same position as Alfonso and Sancho, where I own most of my land. He will not. We will have to fight him. Challenge rival to fight. Who is his heir? Countess Luba. Now this might not be a popular option, but no, we can't risk it. I was thinking about maybe killing him in a duel, but Garcia could probably do it, but I'm not sure he could. It's not a guarantee. So if we lowered his taxes, how much would that give us? 5. No, let's keep it normal for now. Coinage rights. I will try to win him over. Let's see what we can do. Okay, he's already on the council and he's our spy master. This is no good. What I'm thinking is maybe we'll move him to steward. Unless we have a better option. Sancho Sanchez. This is one of the things I noticed in this period in Spain. Everyone is either named Alfonso, Sancho, very popular names. So let's move him to be our steward, because this guy can actually do a lot of harm as a spy master. This is a bit better. Now for spy master, let's Count Diego. Where do we move him? Let's keep, it's not optimal, but we need to keep him there for now. Now, our chancellor. The other count. I was hoping we can win them over by giving them positions, but they already have positions. Like, these people are my advisors. And they hate me. This won't do at all. No. These two guys are pretty weak. Let's see if we can imprison someone, you know, just with just cause. Act of tyranny. Yeah, I wouldn't think they start off, it would be too easy with a crime. Train commanders. Disrupt schemes. Domestic affairs. This guy is so bad, bro. Like, he's going to do more harm than good. He already hates us, so let's just put someone who actually knows what they are doing. And the Archbishop is terrible too. Oh man. This is going to be tough. No. Let's see what we can build. Nothing. I'm not going to build anything. I think I'll just take more troops. Pikemen, because they are cheap. And I'm going to make them 200. Who is this? My mayor. Raimundo. To my liege, I have come to discover a most appalling truth about Duke Nuno. Though I loathe bringing this matter to your attention, I must inform you that this man is keeping secrets of the most alarming kind. I think we need this. Let's hope it's something we can arrest him for. Oh. Duke Nuno. Who is he trying to kill? Oh. Countess Gontrol. Can we arrest him? Well, he's plotting to kill her, he hasn't killed her yet. But we can expose his secret. Attempted murder. Expose. Can we arrest him now? No. I think this was a mistake. We shouldn't have exposed it. I thought it would give me some kind of a justification to do something about him. I just want to take his land. Foremost Knight. A healthy rivalry. Uh-huh. So they're arguing about who is stronger. Let's see. Moon, 16 years old, he's still a kid, this guy. 11 prowess. Elmiriel, Helmiriel, I don't know. But this guy does appear to be stronger. Yeah, we'll have them fight with training swords. I think this is better. Muniel 1. Very good. Let's give him a cloak for that. There, now he can be a special boy. Maybe he'll grow up to be pretty good. Let's get him married. Her. And we'll make him No, not this. I think this is quite the reward. We married him, made him an acclaimed knight, gave him a helmet and a cloak. Their court grandeur increased. Why isn't he getting married? I accept your marriage proposal, your court. Yes. There, he's married, everything is good. So we have a loyal knight. Just I wanted to check upon all the rest. Oh, and we need to station our guys. Here. Here. And we will upgrade. Everything is going good. Just as long as we keep these two at bay, you know, we will lose. Like, if they catch me off guard, we will lose our land. All I need to do is either keep them at bay, worst case scenario, if they declare war, I need to win the defensive war. Oh no. A plague has arrived in Santiago. Jesus protect us. You will seek a personal physician. Oh man, I forgot. I'm very rusty at Crusader Kings. I haven't played in a long time. Aptitude. Our personal champion will be Munio. And we'll make him our bodyguard too. This guy is very blessed, bro. Let's just see all the other positions. I need to make sure I'm not missing something. Now, bodyguards are a good idea because our lovely brother might try to unalive us. Food taster. We will put... Can I put Nuno? Let's not... I don't want to make it a night. No, actually, he's... We need to be sure we won't get assassinated. Let's just put him there. No. Then you're not going to get a council position. You can create titles. Can marry 14 line. Oh, our sister. Kingdom of France. Bohemia. Oh, this is the guy. This guy. He's very close to us. And he won't be distracted with anything else. Will he accept? Another ally won't help. I think we are starting to secure a little. Our men are rising. We have more soldiers. Actually, I think we are spending too much gold on positions. What does the champion do? Prestige. 5 Crusader Wars soldiers. Oh. So, do you see? In Crusader Wars, I know some of you might be concerned if you play the battles in Attila, what's the point in putting anything or martial or upgrading your champions? All the benefits you get from Crusader Kings carry over to Attila Total War, so you get better troops with better upgrades. So a general with 29 martial, let's say, he will have a lot more experienced and well-equipped troops than we, for example. We have 11 martial. Now, let's see what kind of wars we can declare. Navarra. I don't know how much sense that would make. One thing we can do is I think if you fabricate a claim on a county and you try to revoke it, it doesn't count as tyranny. So we could try to expand our land this way, which this county here is very good. Because look, he has 400 troops. And this would make a good capital, I think. But this guy doesn't deserve it, like... He's a little intimidated. I think this is good, this guy is good. Another option is to take this guy, but his city is not that great. Or I could go straight for this dude. Let's give it some time. For now we don't need to be doing it. Activities. Activities are expensive. I see. Yeah, he was very old. Who will be the next? Sancho Sanchez is a good option. And he's very young. I don't think he's that good of an option because he's a fortune builder. It might be better to eventually move him over to here. Which, this is what we will do. There. This is a better option, I think. And... increase development in Santiago. So right now we have an alliance with this guy. Yahia, I think it reads, Emir Yahia. He's really strong. Oh. And with the Duke William. So we have the protection we need to build up our forces. No, I just noticed this. Let's have our knight. Oh, he's sick. So Sancho captured Alfonso, I think, brother released. Brother taken prisoner. Your brother King Alfonso was captured as a prisoner of war by your brother and rival King Sancho. Yeah, so far we're staying kinda close to history. Sancho defeated Alfonso, but I don't know why they fought. Maybe it was a different war. Oh, there you go. They're fighting now. Castilian claim on the Kingdom of Leon. So Sancho wants to take back Leon, which it's highly likely he will do it, but can we help him? Here's the thing, we might be the weakest one, but we can play the balance of power. After learning about Sancho's intentions to conquer Leon, Garcia found it difficult to sleep. Should his brother fall, Galicia was surely next. In the early morning of the 27th of July, he summoned the only man in court he could trust, his steward, Sancho Sanchez, and handed him a scroll with instructions to deliver it to Alfonso as swiftly as the wind. Feeling grateful for his new appointment as steward, Sancho took his assignment to heart and rode day and night, resting only when his teeth was unable to continue. Finally reaching the camp of King Alfonso, Sancho knelt before him holding out the scroll and proclaimed Garcia's love and admiration for his older brother, yet his host seemed stunned and at a loss for words. Garcia's message was read aloud for all to hear, and a contagious celebration overtook the grim encampment. Sancho described it as if they had been stuck in a very cramped room with stuffy air, and someone had finally cracked the window. When Sancho heard what his younger siblings were up to, the news amused him. He proclaimed that he harbored no ill will toward them, but nonetheless, with their father gone, it was up to him as the eldest to deliver the royal slap and discipline his little brothers. Let's hope we can reach him before he loses. Sancho is sieging down the barony of Sia. So we'll move down the coastline, regroup with Alfonso, and maybe we can fight a battle to defeat Sancho, I hope. Paying for war. Wars are expensive, and the Castilian claim on the Kingdom of Leon is no different. With my treasury rapidly emptying, I need to think about how I will pay to keep my soldiers on the field of battle. Collecting war taxes. Army gold maintenance. This is a good option. So Garcia would like to pick this one, the last one. Kinda go with the flow, but I think the second one is better. Cut non-essential military expenditures. Attrition. A battle would not come, however. Feeling emboldened by each other's presence and unable to control the enthusiasm of their men, Alfonso and Garcia found themselves besieging castles on the northern coast of Castile and pillaging villages instead of pressing their newfound advantage and confronting their older brother. Sancho, driven by years of military experience, used the time to replenish his forces in the southern territories of Leon, planning to meet the opposing force when the time was right. Seeing their brother's caution, Garcia and Alfonso smelled blood. Emboldened even further and believing themselves to hold the advantage, they marched their armies south to Sancho's capital and prepared for a long siege. Perhaps, if they captured his wife, the queen, their elder brother would see reason and consider peace, sparing further Christian bloodshed. At the time of the siege, the combined forces of Garcia and Alfonso had swelled to 4,000 men, with the core of their infantry being Northmen, whose prowess on the battlefield was known all throughout Europe. After months of battering down the gates and launching assault after assault against the well-defended walls, Burgos finally fell, granting the two brothers their prize, Sancho's queen. They treated her as she was, a part of their family. When word reached her husband, he was still in Leon, attempting to reinforce his army. But instead of moving east, he marched north and laid siege to the capital of Leon, hoping to draw his brothers into open battle. Alfonso and Garcia were happy to oblige. However, the Northmen, under the leadership of King Guthrum Haraldsson, suddenly split away from the army despite Alfonso's protests. The Northern King gave only a brief explanation. His men were needed in England, and he had done more than enough to fulfill his obligations. Despite losing the main bulk of heavy infantry in their army, Garcia and Alfonso still moved west, for they no longer had a choice. With each passing day, Sancho was growing stronger, while their own advantage seemed to melt away. Oh, our knights are sick. Oh, here we go. Every now and then, the scalar to it turns several colors at once, a natural hues of purple, red, green. Maybe it's a sign. Mysterious colors of the sky. Development. Are we just going to be going back and forth? What is Garcia doing? He's worrying about almond milk. I understand. I'll cut down on the almond milk. It's pricey, but it's tasty. And a sign of self-restraint. I'll switch to milk made from chilled beans and nuts. I understand. Let's cut back on the almond milk. We'll wait. Oh, Sancho almost caught us. We are doomed. And here we are. Okay, we'll be switching over to Attila in a moment. Here we are. This is the battle in Attila. If you remember, I mentioned that having more than one army will be a problem. What I'm thinking is that we need to play support to the AI, because it's very unpredictable. For example, we might make a battle line and the AI will ignore the flanks, let's say. I can't really trust it to make the right call, so we will pull back our troops. And I will show you how Crusader Wars works. So we'll make this a group. We'll be way back. Let's make it the third line. And the calf will be here. Now, let me show you how Crusader Wars works. Now, the first thing we need to see is the experience, the upgrades of our troops. Now, notice that our troops have one copper upgrade. But for example, our allies' horsemen have 2 upgrades. Still copper, but more. And some of our other allies don't have any experience at all on their army. The way Crusader Wars works is that it takes into account the marshal of your general, but not only, it takes into account your knights, your court positions, and all of this determine what kind of experience your units will have, or bonuses. In the case of Sancho, because I saw from the loading screen, all his troops have 3 silver upgrades, so it's very high likely that we will lose. I actually don't think we can win this because he has a lot of horsemen. Most of our horsemen are skirmishers. Now this is a good opportunity to show you. If you remember, in the meta terms we had 2 light horsemen, the special unit for our culture. Here they are. Swift and accurate. Now notice the tag that pops up, MAA. That means if you see this sign, it means that the unit comes from men at arms. This guy, it says knights. Those are our knights. Each knight we have, I think the size of the unit depends on the skill of the knights you have, the total. Each knight has like men assigned to him or something. I believe that's the way it works. They're the highest possible tier for this era. This is our general, Garcia in other words. Again, the very best of the best. Here, these are our pikemen. Now, we upgraded them to 200, but they didn't get a chance to replenish. The real number was 108, and they are depicted accurately in the battle. All the rest of our units, look, they don't have the sign MAA. This means all these here, they are our levies. The way levies work is that they try to mimic, the mod creators try to mimic how it was in history. The majority of your army would consist of farmed peasants. You know, they didn't have much weaponry, they just either provided it for themselves or the local lord would distribute whatever he had. Just imagine it like one day you're working on the farm and the next day someone's handing you a pike and telling you to go to war. That's how it was. A little stutter. So these are unreliable troops, I would say. However, not all of the army consisted of these peasants. Then you had the richer citizens like, let's say, craftsmen, blacksmiths, people who could afford a little better equipment. They would usually get a chainmail, a helmet, better sword and shield, stuff like that, but they still weren't the most elite. And then you have your archers, which again are peasants with bows. The way the levy system works is it tries to balance the two classes, the peasants and the richer folk. The majority of your army will always be lightly armored troops, and at least at the beginning. Later on, as the period progresses, we will start to see better levies. And I think this is it. Another important thing I think is worth noting is that the culture directly affects what kind of unit you will get. So let's say I hired mercenaries. If you remember when the Northmen left our army, they were Alfonso's allies. But if the Northmen were here, they would be represented as they are. So we would have our Spanish troops here. We would have some Northmen. Now look, these guys are something else. Zane swordsmen. They are one of our allies' troops, I believe, units. These are Spanish. Something different. So your army, the culture determines what kind of faction you will get. You can get a very mixed, let's say your realm has 3 cultures and you haven't unified them. You will have very different troops. I remember I used to play a lot in England before, and if you pick the early start in England, you have very different cultures. So at some point my army was a hybrid from 3 factions units until I reformed the culture and unified it into one. Then it was kind of fitting because it looked like I got a very professional army. Everyone started matching basically. Before they were very different. I would get, let's say, 3 units from England, some archers from Wales and stuff like that. So the Crusader Wars mod is very... I know I said the concept of it is simple, but the mod itself is very complicated and it takes a lot of things into account. So my idea of this battle is we will start it.
It is useful to put units into loose formation when...
And I will try to support the AI. I will not go out and do something on my own because I'm fairly certain we will lose. Sancho has a lot of melee cav, which is also highly experienced, so we can't win that way. Let's move forward. And see what we are dealing with.
The enemy approaches.
Oh, Sancho starts to appear. Let's keep them here. Now look. This is one thing I wasn't very prepared for. Spain in general, they tend to favor very skirmish based tactics in the beginning. Later on, you know, you get all the cool stuff like the heavy horseman knights and stuff like that. But in the beginning I get the impression that they're very much a skirmisher based army. Look, even their infantry is almost like a hybrid between a melee unit and a skirmish unit, which goes the same for their CAF. You know, this is not strictly a skirmisher unit, they can perform well in close combat as well. Just look at this. Sancho will annihilate us. And look, Sancho has hired a lot of mercenaries. These guys are not his, they are mercenaries. And I believe I saw 2 archer units. Here they are, heavy archers. Like, Sancho really knows what he's doing. I know he's AI, but still. This is not going to end good for us. Let's slowly move. The AI is rushing forward like a moron already. Let's just try to keep up and...
The enemy engages our ally. Do we help?
Let's try to skirmish a bit. Now I want to send the spearmen to help. Okay. I think we can do something here. Quickly. Oh. Let's try to free our general. The battle here is a giant mosh pit. And Sancho is slowly winning. Just look at these troops, they're heavy infantry. At least we managed to fight back here. Let's get around back. Is this our general? No, Garcia fled. Oh, they will annihilate us. At least our swordsmen are somewhat holding. We won't win. I'm sure someone else, if he plays, he can probably win, but I'm way too rusty to do it, I think. Let's just... this battle is lost anyway. Let's just enjoy the fight. Now, if I had full control of the entire army, I think I could have won. There are some things we could have We could have taken a better defensive position, but of course the AI is... its only instinct is to do a full charge every time. So look how we had spikes set up. We could have set up the spikes in a better way to prevent the flanking from the cap. Let's see the results. Sancho delivered on his promise. The allied forces were decimated. Whereas before Garcia and Alfonso had laughed off their elder brother's threat, they now felt the full sting of the royal slap, which echoed throughout the Iberian peninsula, carrying a clear message. There was only one true king. Garcia broke his almond milk fast, and Sancho broke him. Shattered and humiliated, the two kings limped away from the battlefield. Although they rode together for a little while, few words were spoken, and they soon separated. Garcia marching the remaining troops under his command to the western coast, and Alfonso remaining in Leon, planning to move from town to town in order to avoid King Sancho. No cheering crowds gathered to welcome their king. Even more concerning, not a single one of his vassals offered Garcia shelter or a place to rest after the long journey. He rode past castles and towns, but not a single word reached him. Apart from the occasional awkward bow, one might have thought he was no king at all. It was clear in his mind, Sancho's blow was staggering, and if Garcia was to fulfill his dream of unifying Spain, he would have to redouble his efforts and muster a force unlike anything the world had ever seen.